Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions on a Wednesday afternoon. Just waiting for my guest to arrive, but before we do, I just want to talk about a couple of things. Just announcements I alluded to last week. I shall be at Prosper doing a panel there, and the one thing that's happened at the moment because of the COVID and travel and as the world opens up is that I thought I'd share a bit of news in terms of anyone who's outside the US who wants to go to Prosper but is on the proclamation list. I've been speaking to immigration in the US in terms of legal teams over there. So currently as it stands, in order to, if you're in the UK or in Europe and you're on the proclamation list, which is set up by, I think Trump done it first and Biden's going to update it. What that means is that you can't travel to that country. So we're looking to go in on a B1 visa, but unless you're a brain surgeon or something of someone with high note of skills, then you can't get over to the US. Now, one way in to the US, if you want to travel from the UK and say attend somewhere like Prosper, is to go to Mexico on an ESTA and then go across. But you'd have to do 14 days in Mexico or spend some time in Dubai and some other places. But here's some good news. About 2 weeks ago, a really shitty newspaper in the UK called The Sun, which you wouldn't normally wipe your ass on, but it's good to get a little bit of news here and there, is effectively have said that flights are opening up on the UK to the US. So what that means is that at some point this week, we should get news that the proclamation is updated and we should be able to fly to the US and people from the US should be able to fly to the UK. Now, that hasn't kicked in yet, but it has kicked in France. So France are now up and running in the sense that you can go from France to the USA. So which might mean that you can travel, if you're in Europe and the UK don't update this information, you might be able to go to France, stay there for a bit, and then travel to the US from France. But I do believe that it will start to open up. So the next part of that as well is that with Seller Sessions Live, I know I've driven everyone mad, keep moving the date. But the unfortunate thing, I can't expect, which near enough the whole lineup is from the US in terms of speakers, I can't expect them to sit in quarantine in the UK in some shithole hotel for 14 days. It's unfair on them. But with the changes coming up in place, and I think in the next couple of weeks we'll see some movement, because June 21st we'll come out of lockdown if there's no adjustments happening. It looks good for us to completely come out of lockdown. With that in mind, I think if you've been neutered twice and you got your vaccination, then I don't see any problems with putting it on July 31st and reduced restrictions for quarantine. So it's good news that we're hoping up here. But yeah, just to go through the points again, I will be at Prosper. I'm putting on some events there, which I'll be announcing very soon. I will also be hosting on a panel on Wednesday with the guest coming on shortly. He's just running a bit behind, which we're going to talk about in a moment, with the antitrust. So anyone out there in Europe who's looking to head out to the US and go to Prosper, there's good opportunities now. Just do a look into it. If not, drop me an email, danny@sellersessions.com, and I'll give you any information that comes back to me from my immigration lawyers. So just going to get on with the show whilst we wait for him. So key thing here, in terms of this antitrust, the one thing I wanted to focus on today is the impact on Amazon sellers and what they are doing in-house. Hold up, here's Jason. Hey, Jason, how are we doing?
Hi, Danny, how are you?
Yeah, good. Just to get the show started, would you mind doing an introduction on yourself and then we can get into it?
Sure thing. Apologies for being a little late. Let me just switch cameras real quick here.
No stress.
There we go. That's a little bit better camera. So Danny, thanks for having me. Your reputation precedes you, my friend. You're doing really good work in this space. And just a little bit of background on me. I'm a former Marine and a former big Amazon seller. I was a top 200 Amazon seller. My standard joke, Danny, is
did you say you was a former Marine?
I was, yeah, I was an old jarhead. And so, wow. My standard joke, Danny, is that the difference between being a big Amazon seller and a Marine is that the Marines was a lot easier. I spent about 17 years building up a top 200 Amazon seller business, had an exit, learned, before I even left my previous business, you know how it is. I did the shows and found it incredibly meaningful that after I would give a talk at a show, to have sellers come up and ask questions. And I had learned the hard way over so many years. I always had a good answer for them, and it was incredibly meaningful for me to help them. Mm-hmm. And so I knew that when I exited my seller business, that I definitely wanted to potentially start an agency to help change the lives of these small business owners that I feel so strongly about. And that's what we do here. So I wrote a book first in between the exit. I wrote a book called The Amazon Jungle, where I lay out sort of a future-proof strategy for success on the platform. I also poke Amazon in the eye a couple of times, just saying, hey, do better for sellers. So that's definitely in the mix. That's what the reporters like to hear about, right, Danny?
I don't normally speak to the press when it comes to that stuff. Like, with all respect to you, when it comes to, like for sound bites and stuff, like I kind of avoid that, because for me, I've got a platform, I've got a big reach of people, and I want to focus on them. And Amazon has been good to me in all areas, from a service provider, selling, everything, right? So for me, it doesn't sit with me that if someone writes an article and they want a quote, but it's always negative, it's always black cat, it's always, and there's plenty of people who do those quotes. I just choose not to play that press game. And I'll give you an example. I won't say name the magazine, big magazine in New York. I spent an hour and a half on the call, and because I wouldn't shit on Amazon, none of it was published. So 90 minutes of my time was wasted, but they tried to keep getting me on the hook, and I weren't having none of it. I said, it's not my area to discuss. And so that just gave me an example. And I've dealt with the press since the 90s, so I know how they operate. And it's about frame, right? So they have a frame and everything else. But if people want to poke them in the eye, I'll poke them in the eye from the show, I suppose. But you can do it on more of a global level for yourself.
Yeah, Danny, I have a little bit of a different take on that. And there's a little bit of a calculation in terms of when I speak out about practices that I think are unfair to the seller community in the press. And the reason my calculation is I learned early on that the only way, sometimes the only way to get Amazon to change and do better is to let them know where they're wrong in the press, because that press article gets transcribed, or the video or the TV or whatever, it gets transcribed, it gets sent to the PR department, and the PR department sends it to the management team, and the management team sends it to the person who's in charge of the problem that it created. And so,
but the difference is with you, like knowing your characteristics and you as a human being and being on the board at Prosper and stuff, a lot of that quoting stuff can be self-serving. Like, some people are out there because they want to raise their profile. I've seen it time and time again. So it's not about going after Amazon. It's about making them look good and getting more business. That's the other side of it. When you got the interest of the Amazon community at heart, that's a different story. But I agree with what you're saying, is that unless you go to the press, Amazon won't listen. They hate bad press, especially when it comes to customers, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So the only power that you do have is go to the press, scream loud, and they will do with it. My thing is that, as I said to you, like, if you do it as a strategy and you're doing it for the right reason, that's fine. But I know there are people out there who just rent a crow, and it's really like self-serving more so than helping. Do you know what I mean? Because they can say, "Oh yeah, I was just featured in this magazine." It's all bollocks, right?
Yeah. Like what you're saying, it's not necessarily sometimes what's being said; it's how it's being said,
exactly.
Right? And for what reason? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Certainly, whenever I speak about Amazon in the press, it definitely raises my profile, and sometimes will drive business to Avenue 7 Media, which is the name of my
But what your meaning behind it, that's a side effect. What I'm saying is, if you get that as a side effect, that's fine. But if your only goal is to make yourself look good and self-serving and not serve the community, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Yeah,
that's right. I would agree with that.
I just say to those people, just be honest. Look, you just want to raise your profile. You're not serving the community, you're serving yourself. So that's the difference. So before we get going, talk to us. You're on the board of Prosper. We all know that Prosper is one of the biggest ones out there. People get excited about attending that. Before you came on the show, I was explaining to people how they can buy crook from Europe, sneak over to Prosper if they go in through Mexico on an Ester and now through France. Yes, I've been.
Nice.
So hopefully you'll get a few more people in the EU now they know that that's opened up for the travel. So explain to me quickly, before we get into the antitrust and we break all this stuff down, how did you get involved with Prosper and becoming like a board member and stuff?
Oh, well, thanks for that question. So James Thompson is the founder of
Yeah.
Prosper Show. Sold it a couple of years ago to Emerald Expo, which is a big company that runs many of these sort of educational conferences, including Retail X, which is I'll be speaking at in August actually, as well. That was like a conglomeration of the old internet retailer conference. And they merged it with a couple of other retailer conferences. And so, but back to the Prosper Show. So I was actually at the very first Prosper Show. I was invited by James, and I typically had either was on a panel or ran a panel or gave some educational piece for years. And so it's always been a great show. I think what I love most about Prosper Show is that there's no advice given at the Prosper Show that's going to put sellers in jeopardy. They're completely white hat, if you will, right? They're above board, and they're giving real actionable data. And like me as a seller, even when I was a top 200 seller, I knew a lot, but I didn't know everything. And going to the show, I would always leave a session picking up one or two things that were actionable items that I could take back to my team and execute for my business. And we were always benefited from it. And so first of all, I love the Prosper Show. And so when James officially stepped down, so this is the first year he's not actually involved. The Emerald Expo group reached out to me and asked me to be on the board. And I was, of course, honored and flattered to be part of it. And again, I believe in what they do so much. There's so much garbage out there, Danny, right? You know better than anybody, of bad advice that can get you suspended or, can cause you to break laws. And we don't do any of that, not as an agency. And the Prosper Show is going to show you the right way and educate you in the right way from really good people, how to build a business that will last. And so that's what I love about the show.
Cool. Right, let's get into this show then. Let's quickly back up a bit. You've been quite a lot on top of the antitrust thing with Amazon.
Yeah.
I've just posted the link, and I will leave this for the playback on the podcast. But it's I'll put it in the. I'm just put it up on the screen quickly. So there's a link. It's quite long, but effectively this is the whole file that is being put forward. What's the terminology you would call this? What we serve in there? It's not papers.
Judiciary report, the investigation.
Judiciary report. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So the real big core of this starts on page 276, where Amazon recognizes it competes against many of its third-party sellers in response to concerns about its unfair use of third-party data. Amazon points out its seller data protection policy, which was instituted in 2014, according to the company. Amazon recognizes that third-party sellers are customers too, and their trust is critical to Amazon's success. In an effort to further the partnership, Amazon decided years ago to take additional voluntary steps to protect seller data. Now, what they say externally, they call it a partnership, and that's good PR and everything else. But internally, we are the competition, right?
We are the competition. It's clear. It's been clear to me from day one. I remember when I took a phone call from Amazon in 2003, where they asked if we would be willing to sell our basketball hoops. That's what we sold at the time, Danny. Our basketball hoops on Amazon. They said, look, we're not going to compete. That was our biggest concern. That was the very first question that popped in my head on the call, the very first time I ever spoke to Amazon. And I said, well, we're a reseller. We were a reseller at the time. I hadn't moved into the private label business yet. And I said, my biggest concern is you guys are going to take all of our data and our information and our pricing and everything, and you're going to go and buy it out from under us. And they said, no, we're not going to do that. We just want to be a marketplace, right? We're not going to go out and buy your stuff. And and publicly, I've shared my story about Spalding. We were the biggest online retailer of Spalding, the basketball hoop manufacturer.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And we did so much business with these guys, Danny, that for 4 years in a row, they invited us to the NBA All-Star game, put us up in the Ritz with all the NBA players. It was just, for myself and my three brothers. And we did a lot of business, and Amazon was part of that, but also we had a direct to consumer channel. And then one day we woke up and all of our our sales had stopped. They literally stopped overnight. And we went to our listings and went, what is this? What do you mean ships and sold by Amazon? Amazon had come in and attached to our listings that we had created and undercut our price on our Spalding products so low that we couldn't make any money anymore. And so that was the end of our reseller business. And so we had to adapt. Right. And so, they told us at the beginning that they would not do this, and then they did it. And so we're like, okay, well, we do like the business. We need to adapt. So then we went out to Spalding and said, look, based on our customer data, we think if you change happy to glad on these 3 or 4 items and you give it to us as an exclusive and with our own UPC code, so we don't have to let Amazon share the buy box with us, we're going to keep this going. And we did. And we actually did more business with that strategy, exclusive strategy. But then Amazon went to Spalding and said, hey, if you don't sell us the stuff that the Dazzity guys are selling us or the Super Duper guys are selling us, then we're going to stop buying anything from you, and scared the hell out of Spalding. And so then they took our exclusives. And so that's when I became a private label seller, Danny. And so this has been a method, and Amazon's justification of this is we're customer obsessed. Yeah. We don't care about you, the seller. You're way in the back seat here at the back of the bus. Well, who we care about is the seller. And if we can offer the same product at a lower price, we're going to do it without apologies. Yeah, I just want to quote, based on what you're saying there's another quote I want to read out from the report. Yeah. So since July 2019 hearing, public reporting has made it clear that contrary to its own internal policy and testimony before Congress, Amazon routinely appropriates seller data to benefit its own private label and retail business. After the hearing, according to a July 2019 report, a former employee who worked in product management told the Capital Forum, I used to pull sellers' data to look at what the best products were, where they were, and that was my job. In September 2019, employees report to Yahoo Finance that access to the data is a free-for-all, and the Amazon retail and marketplace teams share the same access to the data warehouse, which makes it possible for the retail team to use the data from the marketplace sellers to develop private label brands. I mean, that's pretty condemning, isn't it? You know. Well, yeah. I mean, that was not news to me. I'd lived it. Yeah. I'd lived it, and and then. Once Amazon gutted us with our exclusives, we went back and said, we didn't have any grand vision for creating product brands, but we created our own private label brands because we're like, at least we can control it. We know the eyeballs are there. We know Amazon is a great place to shop. So, and the only way we can be there safely as a business is if we create our own private label brand. And that's when, about 2 years before our exit, holiday season was big for us. We were seasonal. We sold air hockey, foosball, hoops, all the fun stuff for the home. Fun things for the home, right? That bring friends and family together was our motto. And, we had a very unique design. We were doing things the right way. We were creating things that were different, that were better, and that were being rewarded by the Amazon algorithm. And one holiday season, I came into the office at 6 a.m. because it's the holiday and it's our 40% of our business happened in the holiday. And I'm searching, some of the top keywords for our products. And I see something that's remarkably similar to our designs. Like same colors, same Pantones, like within 1 or 2 numbers of our Pantone colors, which were unique at very low prices. And then I click on the link, and what does it say? From our brands. It was an Amazon. Amazon had done exactly what you just described from that report. They had seen what we were doing. They liked what we were designing, and they copied it. Yeah. They friggin' copied it. And I get a lot of pushback from the investor community. Oh, stop whining, Jason. This is different. Retailers have been doing this forever, right? And it's true. Look, Sears was the first to do it, that create their own private labels. Kirkland at Costco, they do it all the time. Walmart does it all the time. But here's the difference, right? There's 500 million products listed on Amazon. 500 million. And 15 million of those are Amazon retail products. So you can see how important the seller community is to selection, to products, right, on the Amazon platform. You go into a Walmart supersized store, maybe you got 150 to 200,000 SKUs. So Walmart knocks off 1 or 2 or 3 or 10. Okay, fine. It's not bad. Amazon is going after every category with big opportunity where they think they can come in and gut the retail price, right? That is a big difference. Additionally, you walk into a Walmart store and you see an item, okay, you browse in the aisles. It's a much different experience than all that data that you just described from the House Judiciary Report that Amazon has. And they went in and promised us there's a brick wall between third-party selling and 1P. There is not. That report spelled it out from Amazon employees. We knew there's not. So you look at 500 million products and all of the data that Amazon has. They know who's clicking on products and leaving and potentially why, right? They know which product is trending upward, right? Based on the hard work, the creativity, the capital of a third-party seller. They can go in there and snatch that thing, copy it, and gut the retail price. And all that hard work and investment and ingenuity that a third-party seller or private label seller put to work gets literally stolen. And they can do it at a scale that far exceeds anything Walmart or Sears or any of these other guys had ever done in the history of commerce, frankly. And so that's the big concern, right? It's a big concern. Will Amazon's private label business be able to take over 500,000? No, I think that's the safety net, right? They can't. They're
going to cherry pick the top, right? Like you just said, they're looking at the very biggest opportunity. So for people listening here, don't worry if you're selling in a niche 10, 15 units a day, and you're using multiple SKUs to build up the diversity of your business rather than going for 100 units a day, then you've got less to worry about that Amazon's going to copy your product because they're only going after the biggest opportunities.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Danny, look, the way I always come
no, it's morally bankrupt. I'm just saying
it's morally bankrupt.
I just want people not to panic and think, oh my God, they're going to copy my product. And if you are selling 10, 15 units a day, you haven't got to worry because they can only focus on so many things. So they have to look at the biggest opportunities possible. Yeah.
I don't mean to discount the opportunity on Amazon. They're still there. We see it every day at our agency with dozens and dozens of brands. And but it is messed up. You said it exactly right. It's morally bankrupt. And let's back up for a second. So here I am beating up Amazon again, right? Yeah. Amazon won e-commerce. They won. Certainly here in the United States, Danny. There is no second place. Amazon is at 50% online market share. Walmart, second place, is at 7%. Shopify's in there trying to say we're a marketplace. They're not a marketplace. They're a conglomeration of hundreds of thousands of amazing private label brands and sellers. Yeah. And so they did their job, right? But now it's the work of the legislators to do their job to make sure that it's possible for the next Amazon to happen, to make sure that it's possible that the little guy who built Amazon, who helped build Amazon, and this is where, with sometimes security analysts and investors who call me a whiner, I go head to head with them, Danny, because I say this and I believe it through my core. Amazon would not be what it is today without the hard work, the ingenuity, the grit, the capital of the third-party seller. Amazon will not be what it's going to be in the future without all of those things. Instead of Amazon, these investors who say, you're whining, you should thank Amazon. Yeah, they built a great platform, but this is mutual. And each one needed the other. And frankly, Amazon needs the third-party seller more than the third-party seller needs Amazon, in my opinion. And when I hear stories
but they've got the power of persuasion, because not everyone's just going to give up and leave Amazon in their droves because they know it's the best marketplace. So they win the power struggle for the fact that it's like a drug. There's too much money to be earned on Amazon than elsewhere. So whilst that is the case, they can be all hoity and cool. If people like Nike or Adidas and people like this can't get a look in on Amazon, and they're treated like peasants, or not peasants. I need to retract that in case I get fucking sued. But if they're treating them not in a totally respectful way for the size of the company that they are, then what chances the smaller sellers have?
Yeah, I mean, look, they're definitely have an outsized market power, in my opinion. And I'm not a lawyer, Danny, much to my mother's dismay, right? I'm not an attorney, right? However,
well, maybe we should send you back undercover as Marine.
But Amazon is a monopoly in the e-commerce space. They won. You know why? Because they're smart, right? And they're technologically savvy. And Bezos had an incredible vision, and they were customer obsessed, right? But I feel like within the last 5 years, they've lost a little bit of that magic, and they really need to do better. It's so funny. They have all these half-hearted efforts. Have you seen the new support small business? I just did a LinkedIn post yesterday to share this. I went to the thing. So they got this new thing where if you buy something from a small business seller on Amazon, and they got a special page and everything, and they'll give you a $10 credit to use on a discount later on. Okay, that's great. I thought, wow, that's so nice. Amazon's really looking out for these small sellers that are so important to their ecosystem. And then I go to the page that they take me to, right? And I start clicking on the listings. And what's the listing that I see? A product that, oh gosh, sorry about that, that is shipped and sold by Amazon. Shipped and sold by Amazon. That's not a small business, right? What's going on here?
Well, do you know what makes me laugh? Like we've got a memes group, and quite often in the memes group we'll post, you know, that they do in Seller Central, it's got the seller poll where they give you a poll. You know, do you think that Amazon looks after its sellers? Yes, no, and it becomes like laughing stock because the audacity of asking that question. So we end up with these crazy questions, like it's like they're so out of touch.
Yeah,
that they ask these questions, they run these polls, and it's like, is this a meme? Are we being tricked here? You know? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's funny when they ask those, and you know, you see these great polished television commercials that they do and how great they are for the small business. And look, it's a great platform, right? It's the internet of products now, certainly here in the US. It's not as big in the EU, but it's growing fast. Yeah. But I mean, come on, guys. I mean,
well, you're going to have a whole different level of antitrust over here in terms of ranking and stuff and GDPR. So that's another show that we can pick it apart.
Sure.
I want to go up, get your thoughts on some more of this document. Sure. As I said, I'll put it into the show notes for people to have a look at this. It's 450 pages, but start at 276 is the key area that relates to Amazon. A former third-party seller and retired US. I won't ask you that one. Right, as part of the attempt to sell on Amazon, his business created a line to not that one. I wanted to find. There's a bit here that I wanted to bring to light. Hearing report. There's something there about Jeff here. Oh, in light of the 220. In the April 2020 report, the Wall Street Journal, a committee requested that Jeff Bezos testify before Congress to address the possibility that Amazon's lawyers have misled Congress. Despite significant public reporting on the issue and references to its Amazon's internal documents, Mr. Bezos claimed to be unaware of these practices. According to Mr. Bezos, Amazon first learned about the alleged violations of Amazon's voluntary adopted seller data protection policy recently in the Wall Street Journal, when Representative Pramel Jayapal, excuse me, I'm terrible with names, again asked in July 2020 about whether Amazon uses third-party seller data to benefit its private labels. Bezos could only respond with, "I can't answer that."
Yeah, I mean that's just sort of a slap in the face of the seller community, right?
Well, if you have to say I can't answer that, what? Let's look at it. Why would you use the words "I cannot answer that"? Because if he answers truthfully, he gets put on the hook. If he lies, then what's the word for it? There's a certain word when you put on the stand and lie.
Yeah, you perjure yourself.
You perjure yourself. Yeah,
you can go to jail.
Effectively, the only way of getting out of that was using the words, "I cannot answer that."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, Danny, I'm going to tell you a real world story. 2006, 2007, my brother and I get invited to Amazon headquarters by a group of buyers, 1P buyers, who say, "Hey guys, we love what you're doing." We'd started, we started, sourcing our own product at the time, and we're creating our own private label brand. And they came in and they said, "Hey, look, we would like you guys to source some products for us that we're going to sell." And we thought, well, that's really interesting. I wonder what that means for our third-party seller business. And so we humor them and we go and we have the meeting. And in the room are 1, 2, 3, there are 5 different Amazon 1P retail buyers in the room. Every single one of them, within about a 6-month period, had been a category manager for the third-party sellers, right? They'd all been category managers and they'd just moved over to 1P. So that's the way they did it in the old days, is they would let someone cut their teeth as a category manager. And then guys like us would train them on how to do their job and the category. And then they would get promoted into a 1P retail buyer. And so we're in this meeting, we're in the room, we're sitting at the table, and the guys say, "Can you make us this?" And they slide a piece of paper over. And on that piece of paper is showing the sales, the impressions, the clicks, the conversions, and estimates on what that would be at a lower price, right? And we're like, wait a minute, this is a third-party seller's listing. Where'd you guys get? I thought we were told that there is a brick wall between 3P and 1P. And they all kind of smirked, looked at each other, wink, wink. Well, we have our ways. And it's a couple more pieces of paper. Can you make this? And you know what's funny is we would have done it. We would have done it, Danny. We would have sourced these products for them. You know why we didn't? Is because they wanted us to front the money for these things. And we're like, no, this is your brand. We have to give 20, 30% down to the factory just to place the order. Yeah. You guys need to pay us that to pass it on to the factory. You can pay us the rest when it ships, but we're not your bank. We're not going to float this for you guys. And so, I mean, that's 2006, 2007, right? The articles you're reading came out a couple of years ago, or even this year and last year. And so this has always been the case. So I got so mad watching that Bezos testimony because I was like, come on, come on, do better.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, when you run a business, you run a business, the buck stops with you, fair enough. Yeah. But when, let's just say he didn't put pressure on. Let's just say he says, do not touch that data. I mean, he's got thousands of staff below him who are they're keen to get ahead, right? Because they're driven by, from my understanding, with inside of the way it's structured is that it's heavily incentivized, and people tend to burn out once they've been in Amazon a couple of years. They use it right, they get good background, and they go off somewhere else. A bit like places like Apple, you get great to look on the CV. But let's just say he wasn't involved in it. But the difficulty is he's got too many staff to have that opportunity to say, don't touch it. But there are people who are doing it, and managers above them could be going, listen, we need to deliver. You need to dive into that data. There's another bit I wanted to read out quickly, get your thoughts here. An Amazon frequently asked question FAQ document from 2014 suggests that Amazon was aware of that the seller data protection policy has significant loopholes. For example, the document indicates that even seller-specific data can be used for strategic business decisions at a category level or above, going back to the category managers you were mentioning there, right? The answer to the FAQ made it clear that the line between aggregated data and seller-specific data is fuzzy. As a general rule, if the information isn't directly tied or easily attributed to a specific seller, it can also be considered aggregator and non-seller specific. As to how aggregated information attributed to a small group of sellers should be treated, the guidance is also ambiguous. This is the high judgmental area. If a seller-specific information could be easily derived from aggregated information, it should therefore be treated seller specific. It's just nonsense, isn't it? It's just, to me.
Well, that's the playbook of big tech, right? Yeah. Oh, we don't have specific data. And by the way, isn't your life more convenient now because of us? We aggregate the data, so there's nothing to be worried about. There's nothing to be afraid about. I mean,
that's an FAQ built on smoke and mirrors. We'll design this so it's very open. Yeah. Then we'll be able to manipulate that and then present it as aggregated data. Therefore, it's not direct. Yeah, it's just nonsense.
Yeah, look, in my opinion, in Amazon's case, there's sure they're looking at aggregated data, but they're drilling right down to the SKU level of the seller. Yeah. I mean, there's just no question in my mind that has been happening for a decade, longer than a decade, frankly. And so, but that's the big tech mantra. Oh, don't worry about us. Give us your information for free so that we can make a lot of money off of you and your behavior and your information. And in exchange, and by the way, not pay you for that, right? We're not going to reimburse you for this very valuable information that, in my opinion, is infinitely more valuable than the gold rush days, that the oil drilling days, right? That's the new oil is consumer data. Give it to us, trust us, right? We're going to take care of you and make your life so much better. Not going to reimburse you for it. And don't worry, right? Those days, that ship sailed, right? We had January 6th over here in the United States, right? Facebook, come on, right? Google, come on, guys. You guys, the consolidation of power with big tech, and Amazon is one of them, makes the robber barons of the 20s and 30s, Danny, look like,
angels.
Puppy vendors, right? Yeah. Angels, exactly. And I think that's it. They present themselves as a sort of this, innocuous, goofy nerd burglars, right? These nerd guys, right? Who have goofy laughs and smiles and hoodies and all this stuff. And we're supposed to trust them. But I mean, we cannot trust them. Hopefully you opted out of the Amazon sidewalk, right? You can't trust that day. You can't trust them.
Right here, self-preferencing, page 282 for anyone who wants to follow along. By virtue of its role as an intermediary in the marketplace, Amazon can give itself favorable treatment relative to competing sellers. If it has done so through its control over the buy box, as well as granting itself access to the data and the tools that are off limits for third-party sellers. Most recently, there have been reports that Amazon has given preferential treatment to its own non-essential products over the competitors' non-essential products during the pandemic.
Yeah,
so the biggest time that they grew their business, the opportunity there where, people in travel, their businesses almost collapsed without recovery. Amazon still robbing blind, on that side, taking advantage of the pandemic with their own products, not thinking this is a nice little gold rush for those that are selling, because there was a lot of winners and there's a lot of losers in that period as well. As I said, I know people personally. We ate a load of fees at Databril to make sure people were staying operational. I said, listen, don't worry about paying your bills. We'll still do your PPC. We'll take care of you.
Danny, you're a good
when
man.
You are ready, when you're back on your feet, we'll start charging you again. There's no back. And all but one we've done that for. But I can't see Amazon doing that for. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you another story that'll really rally you up. Is anecdotally, I can't tell you who the seller is, but a friend of a friend, is in the cowboy boot business, right? Cowboy boots. During that period where third-party sellers could not send non-essential items into FBA, and Amazon's buyers were still buying cowboy boots. Because you know what, Danny, that's so essential during the middle of a worldwide pandemic. You've got to have your boots, man. Yeah. So it was
maybe Texas. Yeah,
it was nonsense. Yeah, maybe it was Texas, right? It was nonsense. They were still buying everything that they needed. They just turned off the third-party seller to preference themselves, and that's what's the problem, right? And so, so what do we do about it, right? So what does the government do about it, right? And
sounds like we're going to have to speak to the press more, and I have to give up my story of not going, not
get out there, Danny. You're such an important voice. I think it would be an important one. And
there's far more people more important than me with bigger platforms than me in the space. I'll let them do that stuff. I've got my niche. I'll focus on my people, and I'm good to go. But no, there are other people much more high profile people than me that can do a lot of good in the space. I think people like Steve Simonson go into Amazon and hammer away there. So there is a lot of people,
right,
that they don't need me. I do
I'm
what
going
I do
fishing. I'm going salmon fishing with Steve in July. I'll tell him you said hi.
Yeah. No, he's a good guy, and he does a lot for going into Amazon as well and raising those. So yeah, I'll leave that stuff to people like them. I just have my platform and do my thing here. Let's have a look elsewhere. Is there anything else you want that stands out from this report that you want to talk about too, that I'm not like necessarily quoting? Is there anything we should be very specific about looking at?
No, I mean, look, any seller who's been doing this for any period of time knows this is Amazon's game. They know they do it. They say one thing and do another. They give themselves preferential placement. The algorithm, which is Main Street, right? First page of search results. The algorithm is about searching, finding, and buying products, right? And so they give themselves preferential placement above the fold in many categories, thousands. And so we see it. Sellers, we see it day in and day out. And the question is sort of what can be done about it? What should be done about it? And, we just talked about how big tech has lost our trust for good reason. And we shouldn't just trust these guys, this whole libertarian notion that you just do hands off and, the wealthiest among us are going to do what's right for everybody is outdated and misguided. And I think if anything, just look at the 2008 financial crisis to know that doesn't happen, right? Sorry, Ayn Rand, Fountainhead, your book in reality didn't work, right? Libertarianism is not something that is useful for us as a society. And so if you look at what Amazon is doing, and it did its job with the rules of the game that are out there today. They pushed right up to the line, mostly without crossing it. and they dominated. They won. They won
Yeah.
e-commerce. And so now it's up to legislators to upgrade the rules to do what's right with their mandate, to update the rules for the 21st century, to make it possible for the next Amazon to be born, to make it possible for third-party sellers to be more protected than they are right now. I mean, Amazon has an accidental AI bot takedown, and we got sellers who can't make payroll that week because Amazon's seized their funds. There's no due process. There's no warning. There's no opportunity. It's like the friggin' Soviet Union. You're guilty until you can prove them innocent, even when you're not guilty. Yeah. You have to admit guilt as part of the POA process in order to get reinstated. It's authoritarian, right? And so those sort of rules need to be changed. And I'm kind of encouraged. Some smart lawyers have found a way out of forced arbitration. I hope that trickles down into the seller community. But I mean, look, we love Amazon still, even though we're saying
we just give them 39 minutes of stick. But
look, I mean, they need it, right?
Yeah.
They need it. Part of their leadership principles are honesty and transparency. And, the seller community is an absolutely critical cog in their wheel that without them, they crumble. And so they have to hear it. Shame on them for not putting a seat at the table for a seller representative to talk about these changes that they arbitrarily make.
I think at some point that will come.
Well, I mean, I think maybe it needs to be mandated. I don't think they're going to do it of their own volition.
No.
They're not going to do it because of the goodness of their own heart, right? It needs to be mandated. And I think that's the big miss. And so it's up to guys like you and me, Danny, who know about this and who know the game that Amazon plays, to just sort of be honest and open about it and say, look, we love you, Amazon, but damn, #do better, right? Yeah. I mean, come on. That's
cool. I'm just going to read out some of the comments that are coming in. Joe says Amazon seems like brain surgery sometimes.
Without anesthetic, Joe. Without anesthetic, right? Yeah,
exactly. You have to go in raw. Might see you at Prosper, Danny. Again from Joe. Paulina says lol from earlier on. I think it was when we were talking about sneaking across the Mexican border. Cy says, hey, gents. Then he said, happy old days of Vendor Central. Amazon are the most black hat players on the block. He says, surely from day one, Bezos has intention to gather data and use it entirely for his own gain. Joe's back again, says, there's plenty of business for Amazon, Walmart, Shopify, sellers, etc. Amazon took my product in 2008 and kicked me from my own listing. They created a push-a-drug user relationship with sellers. Harsh, but that's true. It is like Amazon's like a drug for a lot of people as a platform to sell on versus elsewhere, right? They've created that. Sabi says, let's all fuck off to China and sell on Tmall.
No, look, trust me, you don't want to go there. You got to bribe the buyers over there, right? You don't want to do that.
Exactly. And so single voices don't make that much difference, but lots of voices together can make a change, he says. Here. And revolution does happen, but not necessarily televised. I added that bit on the end, sorry. I don't know what this comment means, but we'll go with it anyway. It says, sounds like Victoria at the moment. And Paulina says, preach. So before we go, mate, let's quickly talk about Prosper. I'm so looking forward to Prosper.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to our panel, Danny.
Yes.
Having you on a panel so we can talk about surprises into the future of the seller community. I can't wait to hear your insights.
Definitely. So where are we at the moment? It's been a year since people can get back on the road. As we know, Prosper is generally one of the biggest in the calendar. In the US, when people are talking about how, 5 to 10 top events of the year, Prosper is very much, if not at the top of the list, very close to it. What have you got planned in terms of anything different there? Now that James is gone, he's done a tremendous job building the brand and highly respected. He's now moved on. What's changed? Is there anything new you've integrated into it this year?
What's new? Well, I think the biggest new thing is really the space in general. These FBA aggregators, these big money backed businesses who are going out and buying the Amazon FBA sellers. There's going to be something very interesting, a session about, there's about 4 Amazon aggregators, Unibrands, Thrasio, Purge, and a couple of others who are going to be on a panel that my good friend Paul Miller is going to host it. And they're going to have the aggregator and one of their acquirees, one of their FBA sellers. And sort of the goal of this session is to say, and by the way, I think the aggregator space, at least at this early stage, is very exciting. It's a great opportunity for sellers to have a great exit, take 6 months, a year off, right? And recover from all that hard work of being an Amazon seller and enjoy some of the hard work that you enjoy the fruits of your hard work. But what's interesting about this particular session is that it will give sellers an opportunity to see, is this right for me? Or maybe I'm not ready for selling. What do I need to do between now and a possible exit in order to attract some of this money? And also to sort of demystify and lower the anxiety level of sellers who maybe are thinking about this. They've never done a deal before, but they want to learn from real sellers how the process went for them. And so that's something that's really new. And because of, I mean, Danny, $5 billion raised in like 5 months in this space. That is very exciting news for sellers, especially private label sellers. And so I think that's new and exciting, among other things, of course. But I'm going to be sitting in on that, and I can't wait for it.
Sounds good. What else? You say it's 3 days and kicks off on the Tuesday, which I think is the 13th of July, isn't it?
Right. And that's right. Yeah. Is that the workshop day? I should know this off the top of my head. There's a day of workshops, and one of my good friends, Chris McCabe, is going to give some information about what to do when bad sellers come after you, right? How to provide better listing health so that what to do when you're taken down or your account suspended. He's one of the best in the business, so he'll be running a workshop there that I think is very much worth sitting in on if you're going to be there at the show.
Yeah, just running through some. Rachel Greer be there.
Amazing.
Jeff Cohen, Scott Dietz as well. He does a lot of exits.
Yep.
So we got here. Obviously, you're speaking. Paul Barron will be there. Carlos Alvarez, Yana Krakic, who's a good friend of mine. As you said, Chris McCabe will be there. Paul Miller. Who else have we got? You seem to be adding more and more to light. Cynthia Stein, Bradley Sutton, Emma Tamir, Bernie Thompson. He's a really good seller. I like Bernie a lot.
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine as well, who's got an amazing business in a very competitive category.
Yeah. Cool. Is there anything you want to cover before we go?
No, look, Danny, I just want to thank you for being such an amazing voice in the community and for all of your support for sellers over the years. Yeah. I love following you. I think there's no daylight really between the way you see this and I do. And it's always good to have allies and compatriots in this space as we try to fight this fight for the seller that is so important to Amazon and the future of Amazon, frankly. And, I'm a small business guy myself. We both are. Our hearts are there. And so it's always great when I can, I want to thank you for having me on your show, which is amazing.
Welcome.
And
this is a funny one. I mean, you say I do good work, and then I get messages like this. Nathan Clark, Danny is a punk.
You do good work, right, Danny? That you would show that.
Do you know the funny thing is? Let's see if he keeps that same energy if I was standing in front of him. This is the thing with people on the internet and trolls. They're all kind of play the big man role, but then when you see them face to face, a lot of things change.
Oh yeah, sure.
So I'll put him in timeout, but I just gave him a little bit of publicity. Right, guys, I'll be back here next week. Tomorrow you'll have Sharon Evan in the chair, and then Isabella will be back Monday. I'll be back here Tuesday and Wednesday. Take care of yourself and your family. Much love, and I'll see you again soon.